What's going on YouTube? This is just going to be a quick tutorial on Arcane and Arcane defense in Legion TD2. So I get asked often like, when is Arcane good? And I think it's kind of a valid question because a lot of new players don't know how the defense typing really sets up. So to go with the first thing, I guess we'll just talk about when Arcane's good, when it's bad. Now, it's really only good when there's magic waves. If you look at the top left in the attack effectiveness, it's bad against impact, it's bad against pierce, it's good against magic, and it's good against pure or even, right? So like wave 21, it's actually really good because it's the highest health pool units in the game for sandbaggers, for instance. But it's only good against magic, so it's good on wave 3, 7, 8, 14, 15, and 20. So it's only good on 6 of the early game waves, right? And it's bad on realistically every other wave. So if you don't have, you're only going to utilize arcane tanks on those waves themselves. There is some exceptions to that rule in Green Devil, but it is not always going to work out if you only have an arcane tank. One thing you really need if you have arcane tanks as one of your tank types is a natural tank, for the reason that natural tanks are good against impact and good against pierce, but bad against magic. So if you combine something like a Sandbadger or Iron Scales with a Antler, you cover a lot more of your waves because you're never going to be weak on magic waves, impact, or pierce, right? Theoretically, that is, right? If you had like an even, 50-50 split, they can still exploit you on magic waves if you don't have enough arcane, or exploit you on impact or pierce waves if you have too much arcane. But those are its use cases. What I really want to talk about though is the units that are arcane themselves, right? So your tier 1 arcane unit is Veteran and Peewee. Realistically, you can get away with just a Veteran and Peewee for your arcane tanks because majority of the time 7, 8 are your times where you're really going to need the arcane. 14, 15, it's not as required, in my opinion. Like if you have a Doomsday, for instance, a Doomsday will cover you 14 for sure while being arcane, but because it does so much damage. The damage is more balanced, right? And a question from chat here: is it way better to combine natural and arcane versus fortified and arcane? Yes. If you had fortified and arcane, you'd be really horrid on impact waves. And so you want to try to catch so you're always good on every wave in terms of your tank typing, right? It just kind of comes down to what that tank is. And we'll talk about that for every single typing, whether it be arcane, natural, fortified, swift in another video itself. But arcane goes best with natural. It can be utilized with swift and fortified, but it's a lot worse. You're going to be a lot weaker on a lot more waves. Green Devil is kind of an interesting one because it has 35% damage reduction. It makes it so that it's actually really, really, really good on magic waves, but it's also decent then on impact and pierce as well, right? Because of that damage reduction and the single extra reduction knocked off of it. Wild Shroom is a pretty good tank early game, and that falls off, I think, pretty much late, right? You need a long delay with Wild Shrooms to make them utilizable. By far the best arcane tank is Iron Scales. It's by far the only realistic full tank. Most of these other units, while they have tanking capabilities like Veteran, their health pool is too low to really make them good arcane tanks in the mid to late game, whereas Iron Scales Sandbadger is by far the only real arcane tank. Cat's really good early game as a help for 7 and 8. Again, it falls off mid to late because it has bad scaling, right? Only 25k health. Steeds are actually pretty solid for arcane tanks if that's your only option, because they do scale with other mana units. So you can get away with not having an arcane tank on, like, let's say 7, 8, or 14, or even 15, because they're going to meet tank for you a little bit. And the majority of the time when you have something that's utilizing Pegasus mana regeneration, you're either getting a lot more damage out of that unit then, or you're getting a lot of spawns, which then in turn makes it so that if you don't have an arcane tank, it's a little bit more usable. But then, yeah, Antler is one thing to pair it with that I really recommend. Antler also benefits making arcane tanks like Iron Scales just better in general, because of the fact that it will give it a slight buff, right? So if you have, for instance, an Antler, it's 20% plus 5, so it makes it so it's very, very barely weak to magic. But if you put like an arcane tank on it, it makes it plus 10 plus 5, which makes it so it's barely weak to both impact and pierce, making it better. Another thing you can do, like let's say you don't have an arcane tank. If you don't have an arcane tank, you can also go with things like Ocean Templar. Ocean Templar gives an aura that it gives 20% damage reduction from magic damage, therefore giving, let's say, a Fortified or a Swift near arcane levels of defense. But it's primarily wanted to have an arcane defense if you can have it. They tend to be more beneficial than not, and gives you a little bit more safety net. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to add to this. I think that's kind of it for arcane defense. I think that's all we really got in there, right? We just wanted to touch on the good waves, the bad waves, and the natural tanks. I guess there's one other thing, because someone asked in chat, what is best tank for 21? Realistically, 21, since it's pure, a lot of arcane units have higher health pools, right? Like I think, technically speaking, Iron Scales has the most health in the game on a tank. It's arcane, so therefore it's bad on, you know, like any wave that isn't magic. But when it comes to wave 21, 21 doesn't care. 21 doesn't matter about what your typing is, because you have 0% reduction on any type of tank, right? So technically speaking, if you think the game's going to 21, Sandbadger and Iron Scales are very, very gold effective for 21 delay and racing. I think they're up there with Yuzora, but Yuzora does slow and dodges, which I think is a little bit more effective, and Boar, which does the slow. Technically speaking, this is one of the better units. If you know for a fact that it's going to 21, but you don't know when they're going to send on 21. So let's say you think, I don't know if they're going to send 21-2 or 21-1 because they sent on 20. Iron Scales is going to be better off than something like Golem, because with a Golem you have to know when you need to harden, whereas this is just, it's flat rate. You're better off because of it, no matter what. I think that kind of covers it. So if you found this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe, as well as keep an eye out for the other videos if you're curious on Fortified, Natural, or Swift. They will be coming. Otherwise, check out my Discord channel if you have questions in particular that I did not answer in the video and that you need answered in a timely manner. Otherwise, catch you guys next time. Peace.